So I thought you might like to see my floss wall this morning. This is my personal floss wall that I keep here at work. I keep some smalls that were gifted to me by my friend Kim and Linda. Linda K gave me this at the Stitch North retreat, beautifully finished. My friend Kim, Crafty Kim on YouTube, gave me those two ornaments there, and I stitched those two charts there. That was a Michelle Bendy Christmas ornament. That is a mitten pattern PDF that we have in the shop, and that was a G is for gallbladder from Michelle Bendy, gifted me that. Just so cute. And here, this is how I organize my floss. These are whips that are currently underway for me. Now you might notice a hole there. That right there is where I keep the pack of 25 holiday countdown floss for this coming December, and of course that is a surprise for those of you who are participating, so I made sure to remove that before I shared this video. Over there is my last year's holiday countdown floss, and I like to look at it. So those are just some leftovers up there that I keep in rotation for their popular colors, and I use them all the time, so I just keep extras there. So here I have my sets that I keep out and ready to go for all of my current projects. There you have it. That right there, those are two very precious skeins of discontinued floss that I knew I might need a little bit extra at the time, and so I snuck them out. I'm not sure I'm actually going to need them, but they're there just in case. I always like to have insurance skeins. So yeah, that's my floss wall. Happy Thursday, Flosstube. Hello, crafty friends. How's everybody doing today? My name's Caroline. Welcome back to my channel. I am recording here in London, Ontario, Canada, here at the Evertote workshop. This is the end of August. I can't believe we're at the end of August already. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So it has been, I didn't put out a video on this channel 2 weeks ago. It's been a fairly full month. I have a second YouTube channel for the Evertote workshop. It's called Notes from the Workshop. Evertote Notes from the Workshop, and that is the channel where I do shop update videos as well as a joint floss tube with the dyer of Roxy Floss Co, Carrie. And so I shared some of these things last week because I had a few finishes over the last few weeks, and so I did share those last week. So if you watch that floss tube as well, then you're going to probably get a secondary peek at a few of those things again today. But I know, like many of you, when we finish something, we're pretty proud of ourselves and want to share it as many chances as we get. I wanted to talk a little bit today about stitching mojo, you know, losing your stitchy bug and enthusiasm for stitching, because Carrie and I were chatting about it in last Thursday's video together. She's been struggling lately with you know, the desire to stitch, and for her, she's just in a phase where knitting is a comfort for her. And you know, we had a chat, and I mentioned that, you know, if you look back at the first sort of 5-6 months of our videos together, her and I, she consistently had a lot more stitching than I did. And you know, looking back on this channel, I'm sure many of you have noticed that you know, I wasn't stitching a lot as much as I used to, say maybe 5 years ago. 5 years ago, that's a long time, right? But currently, I I found it. Like I've found my stitching bug. I found Carrie's stitching bug. I found everybody's stitching bug in London, it seems, because I am just stitching constantly, and I want to start all the things. I want to finish all the things. I want to make all the things, and not just stitching. I am knitting. I am sewing. I am, you know, I am all in. And so just a little bit of encouragement for those of you who might be watching, who are feeling a little, you can feel a little adrift, I think, when you have this passion for what we do, and all of a sudden it doesn't feel like it fits. It doesn't feel like it fits like it used to, and you can't figure out why, and nothing is working, nothing is appealing to you. A project that you loved, you don't love anymore, or you find yourself flitting from project to project. You know, for the majority of us, and this isn't going to happen for everybody, because let's face it, lots of people move on and find other passions. I used to be a voracious reader, and I was also a flute player professionally. I can't tell you the last time I picked up my flute, and for me, playing the flute, that was my identity. I mean, I have a university degree in playing the flute. I taught flute for years, and I have zero desire to pick up my flute anymore. So for me, I didn't lose my stitching bug. I lost my flute mojo. I have zero desire to play anymore. And you know, I'm not even sad about it, which is weird, right? I miss the friendships that I miss sitting in an orchestra. I really miss sitting in an orchestra, because there's no feeling like that. Sitting in the middle of an orchestra when everybody's rehearsing, everybody's playing, everybody is, you know, the companionship that you get. I had a wonderful conductor. It was amazing. But yeah, beginning of the pandemic was the last time I played my flute. Weird, right? So it's not going to happen for everybody, but for me, I feel like I've come home. I feel like I'm in a place in my life again where my kids are a little older. I have a little bit more help at work now. I've got a little bit more time, and now it's also my job. Like, it's now my job to stitch. And I know, poor me, right? Poor me. But I know for many shop owners, or people who, like designers, or people who have to do this for a living. I use that term loosely because I know many designers have other, you know, jobs as well. And many also do it for the love of it. But it can take some of the joy from it when it becomes something that you are reliant on for your income. So I was always a little concerned about that, you know, that would start to take it away from me. But I'm finding my groove, and I'm back, and I feel like, and I've seen pockets of this over the last couple of years, but I feel like I'm finally solidly back into it, back into the passion of it, the joy of it, the pleasure of the fabric and the flosses, and the sound of the needle pulling through the linen, and you know, yeah, it's been really good. So all that to say, you know, try not to worry about it too much. It's a phase, and if it comes back, it'll feel great. And if it doesn't, you're gonna move on to other things that will feel equally as great. But boy, oh boy, aren't we lucky to have such an amazing thing that we love to do. I have a lot to share with you today, a lot. So I have a few finishes I'm gonna reshare again today. I've got a couple of new starts to share with you today. I've got plans. I've got knitting to share with you today. Believe it or not, because I'm often asked about Sarah's Afghan that I'm knitting for her. I packed it all up today because I have been working on it. I packed it all up today, and I brought it with me to share it with you today, because I told you I'm working on all the things. So there has been progress, and not just a tiny bit of progress, like substantial progress on a lot of different things. I'm just gonna unpack, I had other stitching stuff in there that I brought from home this morning. Okay, so where to start? where do I start? Why don't I start with the piece that I'm focusing on the most. I'll start there, and then we'll go from there. It's a little overwhelming how much I have to share with you today, so I'm gonna try not to forget anything. Because in typical Caroline fashion, I don't have notes today. I've just got a pile of stuff, and I'm just gonna talk as we go through it. So I have been hosting a very informal stitch along for Maximum Cross Stitch, the Friendship Sampler. So this is the original sampler here, designed by my friend Ellen Reed, Maximum Cross Stitch. And this is the large version of the sampler. And if you've been here with me for a while, you will know the whole saga of this chart where there were a lot of things in it that because this chart is completely customizable. And so for me, I wanted to make it a lot. I wanted to take out a few things. I didn't want to stitch the tiny people. I didn't want to do the cartouches. And so, oh, and also I didn't want to do the 1/1 phrase in the cartouche up here. So Ellen recharted it and came up with a small version of the Friendship Sampler. So if you missed this the first time around that I talked about this, if you purchased the large version, if you actually purchased the paper chart from me here at Evertote or the PDF version from Ellen at MaximumCrossStitch.com, we are totally willing to send you a PDF copy of the small version that I'm stitching for free if you purchased the large version. If you didn't purchase the large version and you want to stitch the small version, it is only available as a PDF for sale through Ellen's website, MaximumCrossStitch.com. Hannah is working today on putting up a floss pack for the smaller version that I'm stitching. Up until now, we've only had the large floss pack, and if you were stitching the smaller version, you just, picked out the floss individually. But we're gonna add it into the shop as a floss pack. Okay, so are you ready? Because I've been working on this. I have been working on this. Boy, howdy. Okay, so I think this is gonna, look at that. There. I know. I'm as shocked as you that this is almost done. Make no mistake, I am literally as shocked as you, because look at that. When I started this, did you ever think that I would get this close to finishing? Because I wasn't sure. I mean, I had the will, but look, like, I think I should throw myself a ticker tape parade. Oh, it's so good. It is so good. Okay, so this is the smaller version. And since I showed it on our joint floss tube last week, I have completely finished all of the grass and the stairs. That's all done. These flowers are all new. I turned the corner and I'm coming along here. So these are all finished. There's nothing else to do there. So obviously I just have to finish my floral border. And then there are two motifs on either side of the house. There's a berry bowl and a tree. And then, because she's my friend, Ellen charted, especially for me, two little furry friends, one for each corner, one for Luna, who is my current dog, and one for Daria, who is my heart, who I lost a few years ago, my golden retriever, Daria. So there will be a little D for Daria with a little dog here, and an L for Luna, a little dog here. And happiness attends the company of friends, because friends come in many shapes and sizes and type. And my dogs have always been my best friends. And so I think it's fitting that I have them there. And did you see? There's Roxy. That's Carrie's bird. Isn't that funny? I had to stitch Roxy. So yeah, I literally can't believe it, you guys. It's so good. I am so proud of myself for this piece. I've loved every stitch. I've literally loved every single stitch. Now, here's the thing. There, you can get a better, that's bringing the colors out a bit more there. Oh, it's so good. Oh yeah, stitched on 40 count porcelain Roxy Floss Co linen, 1 strand of floss over 2. And of course, this is the bottom of it, so that's it. That's the size of the whole thing. So it's quite a difference, isn't it? There's the big version. And you know what, the model is downstairs of the big version, but I'm not gonna go downstairs to get it. So you can clearly see the difference. There's a lot more work in there. And I mean, it's lovely. It's absolutely stunning. And Ellen's model is beautiful. But for me, this was achievable in a shorter time period, which I wanted to complete it. So to that measure, I had set myself a goal to have this finished by the end of August, because September 1st, I am hosting a big stitch along and knit along for Sampler September, which is also going to be a chart by Ellen called September's Revenge. I do not have a copy of it here, but I've shown it lots of times. It's called September's Revenge. I'll pop a photo in here if I remember. And I'm also hosting a knit along. So I've talked in great detail about this before. I am going to have, I'm going to be having videos throughout the month of September for this stitch along. There's going to be a hashtag on Instagram so that you can share your progress and follow along with everybody else who is participating in the stitch along and knit along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a video come out on the very last day of August that has got all of the details for those of you who are following along with me for the stitch along. And then come September 1, we are starting together, and I have a plan to have the entire piece, and it's not big, to have the entire piece finished by the end of the month, and a pair of self-striping socks, yarn dyed by Timber Yarns. We will have self-striping socks that match the colors of the sampler. So we've been selling this at Evertote here for the last few months, and I know that we've got lots of you participating, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited about this. I'm going to be starting a little bit early, and I'm telling you this because, well, there's no reason not to tell you this. I have some family coming in from out of town to visit us over the Labor Day weekend. And you know, how rude, right? How rude that they're coming to visit us when I'm trying to host Sampler September. So I'm going to start a little bit early, and I'm going to pre-record 3 videos because I'm planning on having daily videos out on weekdays. So Monday through Friday, throughout the whole month of September, there's going to be a daily video coming out from me. Leading the stitch along. And you know, if you want to stitch the same segments that I'm stitching in order to keep up and, you know, have the piece finished by the end of the month, and if you're knitting socks along with me as well, then it'll be some encouragement and just a little daily visit. So I am going to pre-record next week 3 videos, one for the last day of August, one for September 1st, which will be the first day of our stitch along, and then one to come out on September 4th, which is Monday, which is Labor Day, and is a holiday here in Canada. I believe it's also a holiday in the United States. But for those of you everywhere else in the world who do not have a holiday on Monday, there will be a video on Monday as well. And so that will, on the last day of August, will give the outline of the whole thing. September 1 will be our big start, and then the 4th will be a check-in, catch-up. You'll see all the stitching I've done. So yeah, that's gonna be, I'm gonna have to try and fit in some stitching if I wanna try and fit those videos in, and I'm doing them early. So it's gonna be tricky, but I think I can do it. So that is Sampler September. So my plan and my goal was that I wanted my friendship sampler done by the end of August. But all of this chat that I've been doing about stitching mojo and, you know, being where I'm at right now, part of that is knowing myself and how I work. And if I were to stitch nothing else but this for the next 8 days, there is a good chance that I would very quickly burn out and not be very happy. And you know, I want to keep this going. And I know myself. I want to keep this going. I'm loving what I'm doing. And so for me, that means not only working on this. So I could just work on this and then I would have no problem finishing it in the next 8 days. Literally no problem. It would be a lot of stitching, a lot of work, but I don't want to. I want to enjoy this. And I know how I work. I know how I operate. I like to, you know, put in the dedicated time, and then when I've had enough, I want to have a palette cleanser with a different project or a new start. So that's what I have been doing, and it's working. I think you would agree that for me, and if you've been following along for long enough, you know that I do tend to flit from project to project, and I'm seeing progress, and I'm not complaining. So this is going to be done, but it might not be done until into September, moving into September, but it will be done. And you know, how fitting. It's a sampler, and it is Sampler September. So I'm not mad about that at all. And I'm not going to get down on myself if I'm not completely finished it by the end of August. But I'm pretty darn close. So let me show you what else I've been working on, because so good. Oh, so good. All right. You know what? We've been talking about Ellen, so let's stay on the Ellen train. Oh, I didn't show you my floss. Do you want to see my, I guess you want to see my floss. I've got this in one of my little patchwork bags, which I love. I love the size of these bags for coming back and forth to work. So this is my Friendship Sampler floss. I showed you a little video at the beginning of how I keep my floss on the wall here at work. And so that way I can just trade out which pack I'm taking home for whatever projects I'm working on at home. So I tuck those floss packs into one of these bags if I'm using scroll rods. And then I have my scroll rods, I put those in another bag and I just take them home. I put a little label on each floss pack so that I know which one it's for. And then oh yeah, so I've got the hashtag on here as well for this stitch along so that I remember that. And then, yeah, I just fold it up, tuck it in my bag, good to go. If I have charts and Q snaps, then I use other project bags, and I'll show you in a minute. So the next project, keeping on the Ellen train, I had a new start last week. These new charts that Ellen came out with are so sweet. I absolutely love them. And these three thief charts were based on an idea, a motif from September's Revenge chart, which is our Sampler September stitch along. And in September's Revenge, there is a bird stealing a pumpkin. And so Ellen designed the pumpkin thieves, which are two birds stealing pumpkins, and it's a sweet little chart. There is the pineapple thief, which is a monkey stealing a pumpkin. A monkey stealing a pineapple. And then there is the honey thief, which is a bear stealing, you know, a beehive. I mean, how cute is that? It's so lovely. The details in this chart. I just think Ellen knocked it out of the park with these charts. These little tiny bees all over the place. The pulling of the beehive. The bear is lovely. The border at the bottom is just pretty. The little bee in the center. The flowers. It's perfect. And it's not very big. So, and I'm kind of digging the smaller charts lately. So I started it, and it's so fun. It's so fun. So here is my start for the honey thief. So I've got all of my bottom border motifs fully outlined. And I think you can see the color okay in that. Where's the floss pack? There it is. The colors in this are just gorgeous. So pretty. So pretty. Now, one thing we talked about last week, I think we talked about this last week. I talked about it somewhere. There is a mistake in the chart. So the chart in the print, the chart is missing 3 rows of stitching from the bottom border. There is an errata available. If you purchase this chart already, you can find that errata for free over on Ellen's website, which is www.maximumcrossstitch.com. Or if you're purchasing the paper copy from us, same thing. It's available. We have it linked in the listing for this chart, but we're also going to be tucking in a piece of paper that has the errata printed right onto it. So, because of course we have printed copies already. So the errata is just going to be tucked inside. It's a very simple fix. It would have been a little trickier if it had happened up here, but because it was in the border, I did all of my stitching without the errata, because you can clearly see what needs to happen right in the cover photo, and the chart inside gives enough information that I knew what the colors were, so it wasn't hard. I'm stitching this on a piece of 46 count porcelain linen. Because it is so small, that's as wide as it's going to be, and it's only 70 stitches tall. So guess what? I'm going to easily be able to fit another thief chart on the other half. In fact, I might even be able to squeeze all 3 on here. I don't know. I probably will only stitch 2 on here because I want to frame them separately. So yeah, so that's my honey thief so far. I love stitching on 46 count. I love stitching on all the counts. I'm not going to close myself into a box there, because when you see the next piece, you'll see it is not 46 count. But 46 count, it's so tiny and perfect. Now it's not, I know people stitch on 56 count. I have never tried, but I really, really love 46 count. The coverage with 1 strand of floss is phenomenal. You hardly use any floss. You know, you can go forever on 1 strand of floss. Yeah, so it's fun. Really, really fun. So yeah, 46 count porcelain linen with the called for Roxy Floss Co colors. So there it is. That's my honey thief. I think there it is. There. Yeah, good. Just went to go grab my coffee. Okay, yeah, I treated myself to Tim Hortons this morning. I haven't been going to Tim's. I've been making coffee here. Well, I always make coffee here, but I was starting to really get into a habit of every morning stopping at Tim Hortons. And, you know, sometimes it's hard to resist the extra little goodie on the side when you go to Tim Hortons, and it was just becoming a bit too much of a habit. So I was trying to avoid that. So yeah, I stopped at, oh, and you know what actually happened this morning? A little bit. It was kind of funny because when I pulled into the drive-thru for Tim Hortons, I didn't see this car that was coming the other way to go towards the drive-thru, because I saw that there was a car there, but I didn't realize how fast he was going. For a parking lot, he was going way too fast, because I was pulling in the, I was pulling off the road, and there's a little turn into the drive-thru. And so because he was going so fast, I probably cut him off a little bit because he was going too fast in a parking lot. However, I felt a little bit like I should have noticed that he was going that fast, and anyways, but he honked at me. Okay, so he honked at me, and he chose a different route to get into the drive-thru so that he could get in front of me. which I thought, whatever, go ahead. I don't care, go ahead. Because I thought it's not worth it, whatever. So he got in front of me, and so he got his coffee first, and off he zoomed. And then somebody came out of the side door of the Tim Hortons and walked up to he put his hand up and he made me stop where I was. And then he walked up to my car and he said, would you mind waiting here where you are? Don't pull up any further to the drive-thru because we're trying to back a truck in and we need this space in order to maneuver the truck in. And I said, sure, no, no problem. And he said, oh, and we'll give you your order for free. So I got my coffee for free this morning. So, you know, I don't mind at all that he pulled in front of me. He could have had free coffee, but that's fine. Whatever, I got free coffee. And I didn't honk, even though he was driving way too fast in the parking lot. So, there you go, I got free coffee. Okay, so let me show you the total opposite of 46 count next, because I had to start this. We have 3 new, they're not new, but we have 3 charts from Jeannette Douglas that we just loaded into the shop last week. One of those charts was Flowers for You. Where is the cover photo? There it is. Okay, here it is. So Flowers for You. And we've done a full Roxy Floss Co conversion, linen and a floss pack. And when I met Jeannette in Edmonton, I literally fell in love with this chart when I first put my eyes on it. And she is so nice. Let me tell you, meeting her was a treat. She is all that and a bag of chips. She is really, really nice. That was a lot of fun meeting her. And great teacher. I really enjoyed her class. I took the class that she was specialty stitches, and it was a little ABC sampler. And anyways, yeah, she was great. So I bought 3 charts and we discussed, you know, she said, oh, I'd love to see, because, you know, I said I was thinking of doing conversion. Hannah's done the floss packs for these. Hannah has done the conversions for these, to be clear. And Jeannette said, oh, I'm looking forward to seeing what you get together. So we've done that, and now I'm stitching the first. I had to start it. I had to start it right away. Are you ready? Look. Oh, it's so good. I know I hardly have anything done, but already I am in love. I am in love with this. It is it's going to be so beautiful. This is a 28 count Candy Apple Roxy Floss Co linen. 2 strands of floss over 2, and so it is so bright and happy, and oh my gosh, I love it. So let me bring it in nice and close. Look at that. Yeah. It's just so darn pretty. So this is a wide 1/8 of fabric, which will be a perfect size on 28 count for this design. Put this behind it so that you can see it from further away. It's blown out a bit. There we go. Yeah. Right? I'm so excited about this piece. Like, just putting in 1 length of thread on 28 count, you see instant progress. It's so satisfying, and I love the color. This linen, I had just finished. Oh, remember I told you I was going to show you my finishes. Here comes the first one, because I finished Bart Dunn's Black Cats and Spooky Bats last week. Isn't that great? Yeah. And this, I stitched this on a 28 count Picture This Plus fabric in the Cyprium colorway with the called for Roxy Floss Co colors that Bart designed it with. And stitch it. Now this fabric was it's an even weave. I don't always love even weaves. So that, you know, tempered with that, but the fact that it was a 28 count and like, it's like, it just pops off the fabric. I love it. Just love it. So, you know, when I finished this, and this linen was the one that Hannah had used for the photo for the website, and so it was kind of just sitting there kitted up, and I looked at it and I'm like, oh, it's a 28 count. I just finished a piece on 28 count and I loved it, so let's do this one on a 28 count. And when I put in the first few stitches, I started with the green, the stem, like 5 stitches in, and I was just like, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted it to be. Now the model is stitched on a 40 count. Jeannette has suggested a 36 or a 40 count. So her model is done with 1 strand of floss over 2. Equally as gorgeous. Equally as gorgeous. It just depends on the look that you're going for. I want to see this from across the room. Oh, I just love it. Yeah. Floss pack for this one looks like this. So these colors are muted, paler in color. I'm gonna go, there we go. Blues, pinks, greens, pale yellow, daffodil, Betty White. There's Betty White right there. Where's Betty? Here she is. Yeah, those greens on this candy apple are so good. So the greens are, the darker one is called Green Thumb. Green Thumb. And the lighter green is called Nerdy. Yeah. So that's my flowers for you. New start. This is going to be one of those pieces I think that I won't be able to put down. Yeah, I love it. I just love it. Okay. That's the Honey Thief. Floss. I showed you that. I showed you that. Okay. I had one other new start. Technically 2 other new starts, but one of them is a knitting whip. So one of my other finishes was the absolutely beautiful 1897 Schoolhouse Samplers Sing After the Storm. This chart here. This was the chart that was part of the Stitch North 2023 collaboration kit with Canadian designer Leanne of 1897 Schoolhouse Samplers. This is part 1 of a 5-part series that is being released over the next year, and into 5 individual motifs. So I get a lot of questions about this chart. So if you've heard me say these things before, I apologize for repeating myself. But it does help to cut down a little bit on the questions, because lots of people, you know, they're seeing this for the first time. So these motifs are based upon, now I'll show you part 2 because part 2 just came out. So this was part 1. Here's part 2. So these motifs and these 2 motifs and the next 3 that are going to be released have all been taken from the same original sampler that's in Leanne's collection. The entire sampler is not being reproduced right now. So you can't buy the whole sampler that's got all the motifs on it. It's not being charted that way. She's chosen 5 motifs from the sampler. They're being charted individually. And then maybe at some point in the future, she will chart the sampler as a whole. But for now, we're stitching these as individual charts. And then a year from now, when all 5 of them are done, we're gonna put them all together in various individual ways, however you decide you want to finish your chart, your project. So I'm stitching this twice. I haven't started my second version yet of part 1. So here's my finish for part 1. There it is. Isn't it the prettiest thing you've ever seen? Oh, it's so beautiful. This is a 40 count Panettone linen from Roxy Floss Co, 1 strand of floss over 2 with the called for Roxy Floss Co colors. And stitching this was a joy. I just loved it. It was really, really a fun stitch. So I have started part 2 called Bloom Wildly. Evertote is the exclusive carrier of these charts for the next year as they're being put out, released, I should say. And here is my start on, to make sure which way is up. Yeah, this way, part 2. So I started in the middle, you can see, and I've got a good start on that middle the central flower motif. It's just so pretty. I purposefully used 2 different, this was an offcut from another piece of 40 count Panettone that I had in my stash. I purposely used 2 different dye lots of linen. So they are slightly different, but the tones are the same. That is the look I am hoping for. I want different dye lots because it's the same, you know, it's the same linen, it's Panettone linen, but different dye lots, and that's the beauty of a hand dye. You're getting a unique product. And because the eventual goal of these 5 individual charts is to turn them into a 9-patch whole. So we're gonna have 4 outer corners, 1 larger central motif. We're gonna fill in the remaining 4 blocks with quilting cotton. And then we're gonna sew it all together, and you can make a pillow, you can make a wall hanging, you can make a project bag, you can make whatever, anything you want, really. The world is your oyster. You can stitch all 5 and you can frame them all individually and make a collection on your wall, which would also be gorgeous, gorgeous. So, you know, and there's so many options with how to finish these. Like you can, the 4 outer corners are a slightly smaller design than what the central motif is going to be. So that's why my pieces are cut down smaller. I'm stitching this on 40 count. I'm getting 2 of the smaller charts on an 1/8 of fabric. I'm cutting my 1/8 in half and I'm stitching in the middle each of my designs. Leanne has suggested that you stitch in the middle of an 1/8 of a yard of fabric. So this is where these individual choices kind of come into play. She's also going to release some small border motifs. At the very end of this, when part 5 comes out, there's going to be some small border motifs charted from the sampler where you'll be able to add in some small little border stitching on your original designs if you would like to make these charts bigger so that they match the size of the central motif, so that then your 5 patches will then be the same size and you can sew them together. But if you want to stitch yours in the middle, you know, maybe you want to frame yours with fabric. Maybe you want to frame this piece with fabric and then put that into your 9-patch square. You know, or you can make them smaller and you can make your fabric inserts rectangles so that they're, you know, the 4 corners are smaller. You've got a rectangle in the central and then a large central motif. So many options. So those are choices that you can kind of make along the way. It doesn't have to be a set idea, set in stone idea, which I love. I just love this project because it's so open-ended and the opportunities and projects are just limitless with what you can do with this. So I'm stitching this on 40 count, but I'm also going to restitch it on 32 count because I would love to show 2 different options for ways to finish this a year from now when we've got all these charts done. So, but I haven't started, because I just finished it, right? So starting it again, that I really should just start it again because then I wouldn't lose the momentum. So I'll make that a goal. Before you see me again, I will have started my second part 1, Sing Up to the Storm. I'm gonna start it again on 32 count. So now I've said it, I need to do it. And I mean, it's not really hardship. Look how pretty that is. Can you imagine? So I'm gonna do it 2 over 2 on 32 count. It is going to pop off the linen. The floss pack for that, part 2 has slightly different flosses than part 1. Some are repeated, some are different. So we have this available in the shop as we have both a booster pack. If you stitched part 1, you can choose to just buy the extra flosses that you need for part 2, or you can just buy the whole pack if you only want to stitch part 2, etc. There are no rules. So I've got all of mine from part 1 and 2 on the same ring. And I should have plenty of floss to stitch both, no problem, because the 40 count only of course uses 1 strand. I suspect when I get into stitching the 3rd version, 2 over 2, and then probably even the 2nd version, 2 over 2, I might need more floss because I'm doing both. You're only doing 1 version unless you want to stitch 2 like me. So you'll have enough floss. But we also, you know, because they're different, dye lots aren't going to matter much if you start to run out. If you're on 2 over 2 and you need to bump it up by 1 skein 3 or 4 projects in, and you need 1 extra skein of something you're running a little low on because you had to frog out a bunch or something like that. Because these are not, you know, right next door to each other, dye lots will not really matter. Even on the same project, if let's say for example I was using asparagus and I ran out of asparagus, so I had some old dye lot asparagus down here and I had some new dye lot asparagus up here, that's just going to make it better. That's just going to make it better. I don't usually, I'm not, you know, dye lot issues can be frustrating, you know, if you're very particular about one thing being exactly the same. But sometimes if you just change how you're looking at something or how you're thinking about something, you can make it work, and you can actually sometimes end up with something even better. So that is my 3rd new start. Bloom Wildly. I have this on an 8-inch square Q-snap, which I love. Love my little Q-snaps. I hate stitching in hand with Q-snaps because they hurt my hands. So I do use, and full disclosure, my husband makes them. We sell them here at Evertote, the Hearthside Craftworks frames. We sell floor frames and lap frames. I use a lap frame when I stitch with, or well, no, because I use it on my floor frame as well. I have adapters that work to hold the Q-snaps on both my lap frame and my floor frame, and it holds it in place, and that way I don't have to hold it in my hand. I just find it hurts. It really starts to hurt my thumb, and then if I'm sock knitting as well, it really really bothers my hand. And I think it's important that we take care of our hands and our eyes because we want to do these kinds of things for a really long time. Oh, and I've been keeping my, oh, I didn't show you. Oh, you know what? I did have it. Look at this. I did have it. Here's September's Revenge. That chart. See? And there's the bird. Still in the pumpkin. Right there. So this is what we're going to be stitching throughout the month of September. It's not that big. You know, we're going to be able to easily finish this in a month of consistent stitching. It's going to be really fun. Okay, so that is let me show you my plans for cross stitch, because after that I'm going to show you my knitting. Plans for cross stitch. In the next 2 weeks, I have plans to start 2 new charts because I am all in. The first one that I have been waiting to start since Stitch North. This is the Tiny Modernist, A Stitcher's Heart. Yeah. So this was the first time that Tiny Modernist, Cheryl of Tiny Modernist, it was the first time she charted a chart with Roxy Floss, as well as Panettone Linen. And it was an exclusive design released at Stitch North. And then I believe she started selling them as of July 1st. So we started carrying them in the shop. We released them to everybody else on July 1st. And I have had this chart and floss pack on my desk since July 1st. I've been dreaming about it since Stitch North, but on July 1st when we released it, because of course we showed it on a podcast, on a floss tube. And those colors are so good. Colors are so beautiful. They're so pretty. And you know, look at that. Isn't it pretty? You can customize the hair, the dresses, the skin tone. You could make it your own. I love it. So Hannah and Leah want to stitch this, and they're going to make one of the girls have blonde hair for Hannah because Leah has dark hair. Hannah and Leah are here, part of the team at Evertote. You would have met them at Stitch North. Hannah's like, you know, I don't know what I'd do without her. So anyway, those 2 cuties right there. I love this chart. So that is, I would really like to start that. And the other new start that I have planned, and I've got all my floss tucked inside this chart. Just take it out. You ready to see the floss? If you watched last Thursday's video, I bet you can guess what chart this is. Look at those purples. Look at those colors. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Yeah. Aren't they gorgeous? Anne Boleyn. I know, it's the Ellen show today. Anne Boleyn, one of the 3 queens that Ellen has released recently. This floss palette is like me in a floss pack. I love it. This comes, it is charted as cross stitch, but Ellen stitched the cover model in specialty stitches. So there is, the specialty stitches are not charted per se, but she gives you some directions, as well as tells you where she's, oh, there's beads in here as well. Jessica stitches, Smyrna crosses, 24 leg eyelets, cashmere blocks, and beads. So, excuse me. She gives specialty stitch placement there. And then she's got some basic diagrams in here for the stitches as well. But again, whenever I'm doing specialty stitches, I always find that diagrams aren't quite enough for me. I always have to go and dig out a YouTube tutorial and probably watch it like 8 times until I, you know, can figure it out. And then 3 years from now, when I have to do the technique again, I've got to do that all over again because I can't remember how to do those things. YouTube tutorials are just so fantastic. You know, there are so many great ones out there. And if one of them, you know, part of it makes sense, but you're not quite there, then you can look up another tutorial and watch that one too, and it fills in the gaps. And I'm such a visual learner. So to incorporate seeing someone do it and talking about it on YouTube, as well as being able to look at the little diagram, that's how I'm able to do it. But I'm doing the cross stitch version. because that's a lot of specialty stitches. I mean, it looks amazing. Now this is not, Ellen did not stitch the model with Roxy Floss. This is our own conversion for this chart. Hannah did the conversion for this one. But I know myself, that's a lot of specialty stitches. I will burn out in a flaming heap if I try to do this in specialty stitches. So I am, right from the get-go, I know that I'm doing this in cross stitch version. I love it. I love it. Can't wait to stitch that. So those are my plans. Tiny Modernist, A Stitcher's Heart, and Ellen's Anne Boleyn. Those, I'm doing it. All right, let's talk about some knitting. I had a finished sock last week. In preparation for Sampler Stripetember, where I am going to be knitting a pair of socks over the months of September and October, to go along with Sampler September, I wanted to knit and finish a self-striping sock that had an afterthought heel. And spoiler alert, I did not enjoy doing the afterthought heel. So I will not be doing an afterthought heel with my Sampler September yarn. However, yeah, in fact, I asked Carrie to help me. So Carrie is the one who did the cutting. Carrie is the one who picked up the stitches. And then once the stitches were picked up and the scary part of cutting like I couldn't watch when she was cutting it. It really, I found it very, very stressful. Didn't enjoy it at all. And then, you know, they fit, but a heel flap and gusset fits my foot better. So I will wear these because they're beautiful. But the process of doing this is just not my comfort zone. So I have another pattern picked out for the Sampler Stripetember socks. I am going to be knitting the heel toe do-si-do pattern by Kay of Crazy Sock Lady. I'll have a link to that pattern in the drop down box below. But I did finish this sock and I will wear it. Now, remember what I said? I should start that 32 count Sing After the Storm right away, because if you start it right away, you'll eventually finish it, right? So I made sure that I cast on sock number 2. So I know I just have a baby start. And these socks are not going to be a matched pair. They are fraternal, not identical. So I started with the yellow, and then I got into the bright tealy blue, whereas this one started with the bright tealy blue. So they're just a little bit different, which I love. I love that. Sock number 2, cast on, the ribbing, the cuff is started, which means because sock knitting for me, I can't stitch when I'm with other people who don't craft. I can't stitch because of the fact that I have to take my glasses off when I stitch. And so it really makes me feel like I'm not participating, because then I can't see the people I'm sitting with. And this is one of those really weird things. And if you're like this, you'll get it. If somebody's talking to me and I don't have my glasses on, I have to put my glasses on so I can hear them better. I know. I can hear you better when you're talking to me if I can see you. And if you know, you know. It is literally a thing. I don't know if it helps me concentrate more, or if I can see your lips moving at the same time. I focus more because, you know, I'm legally blind. Like I can't, I could not get myself to the bathroom without bumping into something without my glasses on. So I think everything is unfocused. Everything is fuzzy. Everything is unfocused. I feel uncomfortable if I'm looking anywhere else but my stitching. So to hear you better, I put my glasses on and then I can see your face. I can focus on you. But when I'm with other people, I knit with my glasses on. So then I'm much more a part of the conversation. So for me, sock knitting is ideal because I don't need a pattern. I don't need to count. As long as I've cast on and I'm at a point where it's just round and round and round, it is the perfect activity to do when I'm with, you know, when we're having dinner with my father-in-law and we're sitting at the table both before and after having coffee. When I'm in the car, it's just an easy thing to do. So in the car on the way to the cottage last weekend, I worked on this sock, which is, oh, these colors, right? You can see these colors, they just speak to me. This is, again, a Timber Yarns yarn, self-striping sock yarn, and it's in the Gerber colorway. So there is pinks, purples, greens, yellows, dark navy blue. It's absolutely beautiful. So Heather does her sock yarn in two 50-gram skeins. So you end up with twins. You end up with matched socks. And her sock yarn is plump and beautiful. It's really, really nice yarn. It's lovely to work with. So I worked on this just round and round and round in the car on the way to the cottage. And then on the way home, because I keep these socks, I keep both of these in the same bag so that if I'm at a step where I have to concentrate, I can pick up the other sock if I just need round and round. So I keep everything in one bag. This is our Nutcracker bag from last Christmas season. Love it. I love that minty teal and the lining. Look at that. Yeah, it's good. So I keep both socks in here. And then on the way home, I cast on sock number 2 of that. Oh, I should show you. I purchased, I got this a while ago. I bought this for myself for Christmas last year. It's a little leather notions pouch from a little Canadian company, not little, but a Canadian company called Thread and Maple. They do yarn, but they do leather goods like planner covers, notions, pouches, needle cases, things like that. And I treated myself last Christmas to a leather journal cover, and I also got this notions pouch in the same color leather as the journal cover, and it is so useful. And so my sock knitting bag, I keep it in there. It's got a little pair, and it comes with these things. I didn't have to put these in. It came with a little pair of scissors, a couple of darning needles, and there's a magnetic closure, and then a zipper pouch, and it came with, I don't know, you probably can't see them in there. Came with little, let's get it to focus. There we go. It came with stitch markers in here. So there you go. Now you can see the front now that it's in focus. Thread and Maple. And look at the stitching is perfect. Really, really well made. Good quality. And there's the inside. So little leather notions, very useful. So I keep that in here. I knit my socks on a 9-inch circular needle. It's my favorite. And I keep double pointed needles in my sock bag at all times. So if I'm transferring out socks if I'm working on another project, my notions case and my double pointed needles, I move them over. I move them both over to the other bag. I only keep one set, and I just move them back and forth from bag to bag because I use fairly expensive needles. And so, you know, I like to just have the one pair and use them for everything. So double pointed needles, I do my heel and toe with double points. So I keep everything in my knitting bag. So those are my socks. So, oh, I didn't tell you about this yarn, did I? This is a self-striping yarn from a seller in the UK. This yarn was a gift from Carrie last October, right before we went to the UK for stitches in London. And It's called Mind the Gap. And it's a self-striping yarn. The yarn dyer's name is called Trailing Clouds, and they have a shop on Etsy. And the colors are all of the colors of the different lines of the London Underground. And every time you get on, you hear the recorded voice that says, please mind the gap. And they're just so fun. So fun. And with the afterthought heel, you get that little bullseye effect. So you continue the striping pattern, which, let's face it, I mean, it looks pretty awesome, right? It looks amazing. I'm not gonna lie, it looks amazing. But I couldn't do it. I had to ask Carrie to help. I practically hyperventilated when she was clipping, and she's just happily cutting away because she knows what she's doing. Yeah, I did not like that at all. All right, if you're still here with me at the end, let's do it. Sarah's Afghan. This is one of my sister-in-law used to make large project bags for the shop. She was the pro at making the straps, the handles for these bags, and she was much faster at it than I was, so she was always in charge of making the big bags. This was the only one that I ever made myself from start to finish, and so I had to keep it myself. So this is mine. We haven't sold these in a few years, these large bags. My sister-in-law, we worked together, we started Evertote together and ran the company together for about 6 months, but it very quickly became much too much work for, she's a full-time teacher, and we live 2 hours apart, and so I took over the business myself, and it became full-time. So, and we kind of grew from there. So this I made myself, and I kept it myself. I absolutely love this, still one of my favorite bags. I love this fabric, I love this print. And then I put in this super fun bright blue color at the top. This just barely fits Sarah's Afghan in here. But when I'm at home, I keep it out. And then when I'm working on it, I actually just keep it on my bed. So, let's see, how's the best way to show you this? Let me show you first of all, since I picked it up again and started working on it 10 days ago, I moved my progress keeper, and so I've done that much in the last 10 days-ish. Now I know that doesn't look like a lot, does it? But these rows are really long. The easy rows take me 20 minutes. The hard rows take me 40. There is so much cabling in this blanket, like so much cabling. The pattern is called the Talon Throw by Brooklyn Tweed. I'm using a Barocco vintage yarn. This is gray. I don't know, there's probably a color number somewhere, but it's not Barocco vintage. This is a soft gray, it's easy to find. Barocco vintage is an acrylic wool blend, which is great for gifting to people who are not knitters, or also busy people who want to be able to put stuff in the washing machine. So this blanket is for my daughter, for Sarah, who has been the daughter of a knitter her whole life, so she knows how to gently care for knits, but I also would not expect her to, you know, hand wash and block this blanket every time she wanted to. So she will be able to put it in the wash. So what I thought I'd do is I'm going to stand up so that I can show you where we're at. I still have quite a ways to go. So it's very wide. So that's one side and to there. So there, I can stretch it out. You see? Ta-da! I'll stand up. I think, is that the bottom? There's the bottom. So from there to there, that's where we're at. So it's coming. It's coming. And I'm we're getting into the fall, into the winter feeling. It's cozy. It's not because I have to, it's on my lap. It's heavy, it's warm, and knitting in the summer doesn't bother me, but I don't know. I'm just, like I said, my mojo for crafting is on fire. So I'm loving it. So yeah, it's back out, and we're gonna ride that wave as long as it goes. It's clearly not gonna be done by the time she graduates, since she's graduated from university. So her convocation is in October, but it's not gonna be done by the middle of October. But that's okay. It's a labor of love. She's gonna love it when it's done. And I mean, look at it. It's gorgeous. And that's everything I had to share with you today. Look at that. And my battery is just about to die. So I'm gonna quickly say goodbye before I run out of time. And I will see you here on this channel the very last day of August as we prepare for Sampler September. Thank you so much for visiting with me today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed everything I had to share with you. I hope that you had lots of time to do your own stitching and crafting while you visited with me today. And I hope that you're well. I hope that you're safe. And I hope that you have a great weekend ahead. I'll see you in 2 weeks, everybody. Take care. Happy stitching.